So here we are back in the 737, high above, should I say high, 2,000 feet above London town, big smoke of the UK. In the distance we can see the Thames River. We're going to be heading out over the river, over sort of London City Airport, around to the west and heading out towards London Heathrow. And in the previous video, or previous section of this video should I say, we decided we've set up the aeroplane, we set up our flight, we've taken off, we got ourselves to a position in the sky that we know we can work from and use as effective and efficient test situation. We've saved that flight now as a test flight, default flight, however you want to name it, that's entirely up to you. So this is now my test flight. I've loaded it up and this is what has been presented to me. So everything we've done so far has got to me to this position, and now we can run our tests. Every time we change something we can go straight to Flight Simulator, load up what we've created, and this is going to be our scenario. So this is going to give us a constant situation with minimum variables so we can test effectively, like I said, and tweak effectively. So a few words of advice before we start. When you change something and run the test for the first time, do not record them results. Them results will be inaccurate and basically void. The way Flight Simulator works, especially on the older hardware, not so much on newer hardware, but still it's good to get that first test done out of the way, or first run done and out of the way and ignored. It basically gives the run a practice run. It gives Flight Simulator a chance to load things properly, and then you can take a more accurate result from test or run 2 onwards. Me myself, I'm going to be running each test 3 times, so I can get these. This is going to allow me to get more accurate results on my frame rates. I'm going to take an average of the 3, and then I know if I'm heading in the right direction. Because my hardware is so old, it's going to be very sensitive to change within Flight Simulator, whether it be within Flight Simulator itself or in the configuration file. So I want to know I'm heading in the right direction. So any little change is going to be, I think, is going to be a big improvement or decrease in performance on my computer. So I want to know I'm thorough, I'm heading in the right direction, and I can get Flight Simulator to experience that I'm happy with and I can enjoy flying with. So for instance, if you're going to be running the test and you're going to be doing the same as me, you're going to be taking three recordings and then averaging them, for instance, you'll be running the test 4 times. So the first run will be void, just run it, get Flight Simulator to load everything, because as you go through the test, you'll notice it will load things differently in different quantities and different orders, and you will see change. If you take note of the test each time, you will see change in the way it loads. So run the first test, ignore it, and then start recording from run 2, 3, etc. Because Flight Simulator is loading stuff in that first run, and it's not going to be accurate because it's going to be behind. Basically, it's going to be chasing the aircraft, and it's not going to be true. As you'll see when I run through here, you'll see certain things that aren't quite right when I do this run. But then again, that's why we're tweaking it. We're trying to improve that performance. So that's the main bit of advice I can give you, and I would say, again, keep the changes minimal. Don't go changing 3 or 4 different sliders or putting in a load of entries into your configuration file, because you are going to confuse yourself and you're not going to know which direction you're heading. If I change my slider to 1 to left, 1 to right, I will be doing the test 3 times because I want to know what effect that is having on my computer. So it's best just what I've done in the previous section is set up what I want and use that as a foundation. So this is the first run on that foundation, then I can work out from this. So we're going to go through the route I've taken that I planned in the previous section and see what sort of performance we get now, and hopefully in a future video we can see if the tweaks that I've put in actually do work and they're not just myths, because that's another reason I'm doing these videos, to try and see if it is myth, is it true, do these work, do they not work, is it how system specific is it. So that's what we're here to do, that's what I'm trying to help with. So I'm in the iFly, as you all know. The PMDG is something I do not have, but if you do need help doing this sort of situation, let me know and I will do my very best to help you. I'm sure there's a way we can do it. We can do anything here. Default aircraft is very simple, but it's not going to give you an accurate representation, as mentioned earlier. So let's see what we can do with this. iFly has been loaded. we're in the, like I said, default flight as we were before. First thing I'm going to do is go down to my FMC, because that's where all the information is stored. I'm going to go to menu, I'm going to go to simulation, I'm going to go to load, and then whatever you've named your test scenario as, so your route and your panel state, I've named them the same so I don't confuse them and don't forget them. So test, nice and easy, that's what I like. So we're going to load the route that's under test, load the panel state that's under test. It says done, so we know that's in there. Clear that because I'm OCD. Go back to the MCP because, as you can see, it's not quite right. We've set up for a 2,000 feet flight, and that's set me up for 10,000, so it's going to be error straight away. So we'll do that first. We'll get this down to 2,000. Nice and simple. There we go. And then from the right to the left, you can do it from left to right, as long as you know which ones you've switched, because they're not in the paused. So in pause screen, they're not going to change. So we go up on the flight director, engage autopilot, LNAV, VNAV. It's all now loaded in the FMC, so the autopilot knows where it's going. Auto throttle on, flight director left on, and I'm going to turn the master warning switch off because that's going to come on. Go back to the default screen I have when I'm flying, so we can see there's a route in here now. This is the route we're going to be taking. So let's go. So P, disengage. So when you hit P in the test, that's set up. As soon as you hit P to release and restart the flight, that's when your FPS fraps is going to be kicking in and recording your frames. And if you've set it up for 5 minutes like myself, then just step away from the computer, don't touch the mouse, don't touch anything, because it all affects the frame rates. Just step back so you know it's consistent, let it do its thing. As soon as the frame rate counter appears in the top right hand corner as we set up, then you know the test is over. You can reload the flight or exit the simulator and go again. Another note, if you are changing settings, my advice would be to leave the simulator and restart the simulator. Fresh boot of the simulator, do it again, so you know it's taken on board what you've done, and you can get an accurate representation and some accurate feedback from your results. If you want to be really OCD about it, you can restart the whole computer and do it that way. As mentioned before, make sure you've got exactly the same setup, you've closed all the same programs. Again, you want to keep the variables to a minimum. The less variables you got, the more accurate your results are going to be. It is very time consuming, this, I know, but if you're struggling with performance because you've got older hardware, this can be very valuable for you, and you can eke out just a few more frames per second, because them little frames that you eke out, 2, 3, 4, 5, can make a bit of difference. So if you go over here, we're now hitting London City Airport, as you can see the distance. It looks a bit stuttery on the frames, but we are recording, so it's not a true representation of what it's actually like to fly. All the autogen's been loading. FSX has that weird and wonderful way of just popping up autogen because of the way it was coded, but I'll go past that. As long as the flight's smooth, I'm happy. But everything in London is loading. I know where I am. I see Canary Wharf, I see Millennium Dome, I can see the moon, so the moon's there. The weather's still the same as we loaded before. It's part of the default flight, so that's never going to change. There's a boat on the river, very nice. That's always there, so that's nothing. I haven't got any boat traffic on or anything, so that's part of the scenery. You see London Tower Bridge in the middle of the picture there. You just see Heathrow off to the left by this window. Yeah. Now, following the river, I take a follow, and then we get to Holby, and then we take a left. Now, another thing I can measure my performance on, I've noticed in previous runs, is when I take a left over Hyde Park and then start straightening up out towards Heathrow, it stutters for about 2 seconds. 1 or 2 seconds, the simulator freezes, and it happens at the same point every single time, always the same point. So that's something again I can measure against. Can I get rid of that stutter? I don't know. Can I minimize it so it's less noticeable? I'm not sure, but that's something we can tweak. If we can tweak it out, awesome. Now I know the tweaks are working. So we're heading out over the BT Tower here, I think, in the distance. We've got Big Ben to our left. I'm not going to swing round because that's not because when you're doing the test you literally just put the mouse to the bottom, step away from the keyboard. and let it do its thing. Swing around here, and as we come out of this bank, you'll notice that hopefully it comes out in the video. It stutters, and there's Heathrow in the distance. So that's probably not helping either. The fact that Heathrow is now loading, that's quite a mighty, because I've got UK 2000 on there, so it's quite a hefty airport to be loading. There's Hyde Park. And as I've been going on before, previous tests, I was saying before about loading times. A lot of this stuff here on the first 2 runs wasn't loading. The textures were all blurry. They're still blurry now, but they were a lot blurry before. And AutoGen sort of stopped on this river. There it goes. There's a stutter. See that? So all the AutoGen would only load up to this point on the river, this side of the river. Everything beyond that, apart from these flats here, all the trees and all the little buildings would not load. The simulator would not bring up the AutoGen and the textures quick enough for the flight. I mean, I'm doing 250 knots because we're below 2,000 feet, so the aircraft is going pretty quick for the scenery on the ground. But again, this is something we can measure against. If I can get rid of these blurries, because they do go blurry, because my computer is so old, it just can't keep up with it. But if I'm hoping if I add the buffer pools tweak and a couple of others, I can get rid of that. So this is about where the 5 minutes ends. When I start hitting these flats and Heathrow starts becoming a bit more prominent there, that's when my 5 minutes ends. I'll pause. Well, the way we set it up, we do not pause the simulator because P would then restart another test. So what you do is literally go back to Alt. You'll go to Alt, Flights, and then you can go straight back to Load Flight and then load the test flight. So this is the before video, and over the next series I'm going to be showing you the tweaks that have been talked about in the Flight Simulator community and putting them to the test to see if they work. And hopefully at the end of the series we'll have a nice video with all the improvements and the massive improvements in performance. Yes, I'm very hopeful. But we'll see what we can do, and I look forward to going through the series with you. So, till next video, see you soon. Thank you very much.